seems like most of us are here. Just a few things. And we'll get started with a practice today. But I wanted to preface it first by reminding you that the key to really being successful at this effort of meditation hinge upon the context in which you are doing your meditation. You see, everything has a right context. You see, and the context for succeeding at your meditation has a lot to do with your understanding. We have talked in the past on numerous occasions about the necessity for understanding it, that your practice cannot be more profound than your understanding, you see. So understanding, in some sense, then, is the context in which you must do your meditation. If you're just doing your meditation with no real understanding, then that meditation becomes mechanical, it becomes rote. It's not enjoyable at all, you see, because what is absence is the context that allows you to enjoy, to appreciate, to value, to actually find refuge. For many of us, you see, your practice is not even experienced as a refuge from anything, you see. It becomes more of an ordeal, you see. So meditation that is not in the right context is always going to feel like a chore. Almost a kind of punishment that you're doing to yourself, you see. But it certainly will not bear fruit, and you will not enjoy it, you see. This understanding, this vavika, as it is called in the Hindu tradition, is key, you see. You have to understand, you see, something before you can really bring the right kind of energy and focus to your meditation, you see. And now, of course, we won't have time to exhaust it, but I wanted to say a few things about the makeup of that understanding, you see. And the first thing you got to understand is your predicament. You have to understand the situation you are in. You follow me? Simply by virtue of being born and becoming ego-bound, i.e. identify with this body mind as being who and what you are, that results in a certain condition, a certain situation that you are in. Are you with me? You are in a situation of mortality, you see. You know full well you're going to die. There's no doubt about that, you see. And you know that before that happens, all kinds of things can happen to this body mind of yours, you see. Illness, accident, sickness, you name it, you see. And on top of that, you know you can die any minute, any moment, you see. This is your situation. This is the circumstance you are in. You follow me? The absence of avika simply means that you are no longer sensitive to your real condition. You distract yourself through all kinds of ways. Are you following me? Pleasurization, self-indulgence, consolation, fantasies, all of those kinds of mental, emotional, and physical activities are simply your avoiding seeing the situation you're in. Are you following my argument? Yeah. And you are clinging by virtue of your being ego-bound to this body mind. You're clinging to this body mind. You follow me? Trying your best to make it immortal. It is not immortal. It ends. And it's going to end sooner than you think. So you have to understand the situation you're in. This kind of sensitivity to the reality of the situation you're in is fundamental for the practice. You must have that kind of sensitivity. You follow me? That kind of awareness must be there. It must be cultivated. You must therefore contemplate your real situation. You see? Otherwise, you're just going to make this into more distraction. you see, and defeat the whole purpose of meditation. Are you all following my argument? We have a little bit of time. So if you have a question, you know, this is an occasion that we have set aside just for us, those who are attempting to do this thing. But there must be this sensitivity to the reality of your situation. And there's not anything you can do that change that situation. All of your distraction, all of your consolation, all of your self-indulgence, all of your pleasurization, none of that changes the reality of your situation at all. Are you with me? And that is your problem, you see? Now you're trying to solve the problem of your inevitable demise by distracting yourself and all of this and that, you see? But none of that works. Have you noticed? None of that stuff is stopping you from getting old. None of that stuff is stopping you from getting sick. None of that stuff is stopping you from becoming dead. Is that about right? This is your situation, you see. The other thing you have to become sensitive to is the reality of the fact that embedded deep within you at your innermost core is this urge to be happy. But really happy, you see, ultimate, complete, you see, not this change and phasing, you see, temporary kind of pleasure that you're getting. That's not what you want, you see. You have to become sensitive to what it is you really want. You really want to be happy. You follow me? Now, because you have no longer any faith that that kind of happiness is even possible, you have settled for less. Are you with me? Are you following me? You've settled for less. You see, you're getting your hits, you're getting your pleasurization, but deep down inside, you know that's not what you really want. You follow me? Deep down inside, what you really want is ultimate, complete, absolute happiness, bliss, ananda. You see? And you got to become sensitive now to what it is you really want. You see? And use your lifetime and devote your lifetime to the attainment of that and not piss away your lifetime settling for little bitty things, none of which last. Are you with me? Yeah. Are y'all really following me? Are you understanding this argument? So this kind of dual sensitivity is the foundation for the practice. The practice must be done within the context of that understanding. You see? Then you're focused. You see? You're no longer caught up in your distractions. You see? Otherwise, you'll always find yourself mentally, psychologically, seeking ways to fantasize yourself out of your dilemma. It's just fantasy. So some of you will come up with the spiritual fantasy, the fantasy of becoming enlightened, but it's a fantasy for you. It's just another one of your fantasies. Are you following me? And that's not going to work for you. Now ask me some questions before we go to work here. Yes, beloved.
So, I don't quite know how to ask the question, but what is the term for someone that understands that this is temporary, understands that all of this is coming to an end, but you still find yourself caught up in the day-to-day, I don't know, insanity of realities. I mean, not being able to resist them or getting caught up in it.
It's a sign that you don't understand. It is simply a sign you are a philosopher. Philosophy is not going to work here. It doesn't work. You see? It doesn't change your situation. It doesn't address the problem. You see, beloved, the problem you have is that you know fully well as I do, you know that what you're calling yourself, the you that you feel you are, you know that is running out of time. Correct?
Correct.
That's the problem, isn't it? Now, you're trying to distract yourself from that reality. You're trying to do everything that your mind can think of in order to avoid experiencing the reality of your ego-bound situation. Are you with me? And on top of that, you see, you're trying to be happy in a place where personal egoic happiness cannot happen. There is no such thing as the personal ego ever finding happiness, the real happiness that you're seeking. Are you with me? The ego-bound individual can only have consolation, temporary satisfaction, pleasurization, but none of that lasts, you see? Are you following my argument? Mm-hmm. So this is what has to be contemplated. You have to cultivate this and then abide in that understanding, that bhavika. You see, you must cultivate it. You see, that's the whole purpose of satsang. That's the whole purpose of scriptures. That's the whole purpose of kula meetings and so forth and so on. Studying is to cultivate and then abide in that recognition of your real condition. You see, now you can go on involving yourself in click-clack, and that's what you're talking about. But you know full well, click-clack is not what you want, is it? All those activities that you find yourself compelled to indulge in, you know full well that's not what you want. You're settling. Is that about right?
Right.
Now, the ideal is, are you going to devote your lifetime to getting what you really want or not? That is the question. You see? Now, because of our doubt, our lack of faith, we no longer believe that that kind of happiness that we really want is even possible. Are you with me? The gurus come and tell us, no, that is possible. That kind of condition actually exists. Satchitananda actually exists. That's possible for you. You see? And here's the way to get it. Are you with me? You see? But not having faith in that argument, you see, you settle for the click-clack, which is not even what you want. How long will you go on living pursuing that which you really don't want? And even when you get what you think you want, you find out you never get what you wanted it for. So you know that. I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know by virtue of your experience. Is that about right, beloved?
True.
Now, why are you going to devote your lifetime in the pursuit of that which you really do not want? Ponder that. Consider that. You follow me? And that's what you have to decide. Or you will settle. But settling really don't change the reality of your situation, does it? You're settling, but this thing is still disintegrating, isn't it? Yeah. Your situation is not really changed. You see, the problem is not solved. You see. Reflect on all of the things you're doing. Are they really changing your real situation? No. You are ego-bound. You see? You are identified with the body-mind, knowing full well this body-mind is subject to disappear any minute. Is that correct? Correct. So that's your problem. Now, you think that you have solved the problem by your indulging in this and your consolation in that, but you haven't solved any problem simply by virtue of indulging yourself and distracting yourself, have you? No. The reality of your situation remains unchanged. Correct?
Correct.
And part of that reality of your situation involves your very pursuit of happiness, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Think about it. You have to think deeply about it, you see. You're trying to be happy. That's all anybody is trying to do. The fundamental impulse underlying all human activity is the pursuit of happiness with a capital H. That's what you really trying to get. But don't you see that your current forms of pursuing that happiness is not getting you what you want? Leonard has not made you ultimately, completely, and permanently happy, has he? Has your children done that? Your job, your money, have anything you've done produced that complete, unchanging, non-phasing, permanent happiness? But that's what you want. Are you following me?
Yes.
What are you going to do about that? So this is what must be understood. You see. Not having this kind of realization about the reality of your situation, and of course the absence of these kinds of dual sensitivities I'm speaking to you about, you see, characterize your situation. You see, we have to have a very sobering conversation about this, don't you think?
Yeah.
Everything else you do is just an ego-bound illusion. That's all. And then when you come into realization of your real situation, you get real. You see? How can you have any success at meditation if you can't keep it real? That's what we say on the street, right? It's about keeping it real. Or you all don't want to keep it real?
Keep it real.
Keep it real? Well, there you have it. Keeping it real. Mhm. Yes, beloved.
It seems to me though, when you're trying to keep it real, you know, everything around you is not keeping it real. So it's kind of difficult to stay in that reality of that realness.
No, not at all. You see? Nobody is making you do that. You're doing that. Ego is an activity. The ego-bound condition is sustained and maintained by a mental activity of identification with body-mind. You're doing that. Are you with me? You're doing it. You're constantly thinking about yourself, your ego self, the ego I. You see? That's how it's maintained. It's in your thinking. You're constantly thinking that inner dialogue. You all watch the Revolver Dharma, right? That inner dialogue, that has to be shut down. That's the function of Simran. First, you must shut down this inner dialogue. Are you with me? Instead of giving your attention to that inner dialogue and all of what that consists of, you see, you must give your attention to the mantra, to the Simran. You must give your attention to the Istadavata. You see, you must forget about all that. You see, as long as you cling, and you are clinging to your thinking, you follow me? You remain ego-bound. And your destiny is death. And you know it. You see? Yes, beloved.
Okay. The inner dialogue, to me, now that you're just saying to shut it down, it seems like if I shut it down,
You don't exist.
Exactly.
That's the whole point. You must die.
you know,
That's the whole point.
and then my mind is like, then how you gonna function? How you gonna work? How you gonna do this? How you gonna do that?
That's just your dialogue talking.
Again.
That's right. Your so-called friend. It's simply the sign, beloved, that you have a lot of understanding required, that is still required of you. See? But you must forget yourself. You must forget that self, the ego I, which is not who you really are in any case. You have to forget that.
So every time it comes up, you just have to
Simran.
simmer.
Simran Bhajan Diya. That's it. You see? You must lose all sympathy with the ego eye. Overcome the illusion that it is you. You're that which is aware of the thinking, not that which is thinking. You see?
Okay, one more question.
Okay, one more, and that's
Since I'm always been living like this, trying to do the thinking, how do I, well, you say just do the simmer and the button and yeah, and cut that out, but it's almost like how would I function without the assistance of the...
if you was in a house that burst into flames, when you get out,
Yeah.
what is required first, though, is the recognition. If you don't get out, you're going to burn up, that the house is on fire, so forth and so on. There must first be the realization of your situation that your thinking has created for you. Are you with me? Your thinking has not changed your reality of your situation. You're dying sitting over there.
Right.
All this thinking you're doing has not changed that. That don't work. Are you right? You're trying to think yourself out of the problem. Are you with me? Think as much as you like. Your reality of your situation as an ego-bound individual does not change, does it?
Right.
You're still growing old, right? You're still coming up short and finding the happiness that you're seeking. Is that right? So what good is all your thinking doing you? You have projected a value onto your thinking that your thinking does not possess. You're deluded. Are you following me? Think about it.
Yeah. So it's just more of just doing what the reality requires versus thinking about.
First, you have to see the reality of your situation.
Right, whatever situation you're in.
Well, I'm telling you.
I mean, it's not just the spiritual part that concerns me, because the worldly part is distracting me also. And if I'm thinking that I should be doing this, thinking that I should be doing that, you know, I'm still distracted versus just, I know I got to go to work, so I just get up and go to work. I don't think about it.
Do you think about breathing?
No,
Do you think about blood circulation?
no.
And then in spite of all your thinking, what role does that have anything to do with whether you get home at night?
No.
Examine the value of all your thinking. What do you think? You using your thinking to try to solve a problem, or you just thinking for the sake of thinking? Does your thinking have any utility? Is there anything practically about it? You see, you're thinking about how to get you some money to pay your bills, right?
Yeah.
Right? But you're gonna die. Is paying your bills gonna stop that? What is the problem? You gotta know your problem. You gotta understand what your situation is. Are you with me? You're like the man who fell into the well, right? The rope is thrown down to you. You're asking questions about, well, when I get up out of here, and how long is this rope, and who dug this well? That has nothing to do with your situation. Your situation is you're in this well. Are you with me? Yeah, I'm bastardizing the story, but you all know the story, right? You're in a situation, and you asking how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. You're in a situation here. You see, the you, the ego I that you presume yourself to be, is in the act of perishing, and it's going to end any minute. That's your problem. All right? So if you're going to think, then think of how to solve your problem. Are you with me? I'm not anti-thinking,
Right.
but right thinking, right mindfulness. If you're using all of your ability to think, but you're not addressing your problem, what are you doing with your thinking?
Right.
I mean, really, seriously now.
Distraction.
You're thinking a lot, right? But it's not related to dealing with your problem, is it?
Right.
It's the opposite, isn't it? Your thinking is purposed to distract you from your problem. Is that about right?
Yeah.
You're thinking of ways to avoid living with the reality of your situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're using your thinking to manufacture fantasy, right? Hope, belief, et cetera, right?
Right.
You're using your thinking to further delude yourself, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
You're using your thinking to get as far away from the reality of your situation as possible, aren't you?
Right.
Aren't you?
Yeah.
Are you just patronizing me, or do
No.
you realize this?
No, I'm realizing it more and more.
Mm. So we will have, I'm hoping, perhaps in the future, an occasion where we can just kind of set aside just some more time, maybe a workshop, I'm not sure what the best context is, but I did want to bring this to your attention today, you see. You got to do your meditation in the right context of understanding the reality of the situation, and then you won't play with it. Are you with me?
Right.
Hmm? If this room suddenly bursts into flame, y'all not going to get up and hug each other and say, "Right, shake them out," right? Because the reality will prohibit that kind of waste of time and energy, wouldn't it? Right? You're dying, and you act like you're going to live forever. Moment to moment, this ego-bound sense of self that you're clinging to is disappearing right before your very eyes, Mr. Green. You see? Right before your very eyes. And you're lollygagging. You see? You're pretending that nothing is going on. You see? You're still trying to make utopia here. You're still trying to make this paradise. You're trying to make it work. But none of this is working. You're moving right along. Moment to moment. And then, done. Aren't you? All right. I think, what time we get out of here? When we come out?
12:30.
12:30?
But the guests will be here at noon.
12:30. Well, we have a little time. Let's not waste any more. All right. No, you hate it. I came back, right? Huh? We'll just do a little bit of practice here. You should have already done your daily practice, so. $12:30, okay.
Master,
Yes, beloved?
are we doing budget?
No, we're gonna do just simmering because people might come in the room and so forth. I think we'll reserve our budget practices when we can find a spot where we have a little bit more privacy, if you all don't mind. Okay. And then I'm gonna try to save a little time here to come back so we can work more on getting the context right here. You all already know how to do mechanical meditation. You got that down, science, right? All right. So just a little bit of this, just to quiet you down, and then we're gonna get back down to context building. Conversations, and be reminded that I believe next month we'll be out south, 1 minute, at another location that hopefully will give us a little bit more privacy and a little bit more time. So Ronnie Kamari, you sent that email out with the address and all of that?
Yeah.
All right, then Ronnie Kamari will be sending you out the address, and so forth and so on. Yes, beloved?
If you meditate and you're in a real good space, with good context, you fall out of it, should you stop meditating at that time?
If you're in a good place and you fall out of it,
Yeah, like you said, you have to, have a certain context when you go into the meditation, a good context.
right context,
So
right
if
understanding.
you fall out of that good context, should you stop meditating?
No.
Just, you said that if.
The context I was speaking of was a attitude.
That's what I was speaking of too.
Well, when you meditate, you should just be on what you're meditating on. You're not meditating on having a good attitude. You're meditating on similar. Okay?
Is that what you should be holding here?
Yes,
somewhere?
yes, yes. So those are the kind of technical aspects of the practice, locating yourself behind the two eyes, et cetera, et cetera. But none of those technologies bear fruit if the context for it is not correct. The context is not a technology. It's the context. Are you with me? It's like you're sitting in this room, right? And perhaps it's cold outside, right? So the ideal is that if you're going to sit in the room, you want to be warm and all of that, right? You have to be in the room to be warm. Are you with me? Now you can sit comfortably, laid down, it doesn't matter, but you're in the right place. Perhaps this is a little difficult to communicate via language here. So you have to kind of intuitively understand me. Context is not a technique. You follow me? You don't locate context behind the two eyes. You get behind the two eyes within the context of it. It's like understanding why you're doing something. Are you with me? Are you following me?
Yeah, I'm following, but I think perhaps you got what I misunderstood what I'm saying. Say, for instance, you're in.
If your attention
context.
goes off, you bring it back. That's the basic
If
practice.
you start having pain, you're gonna not be in that good context.
No. You want to go beyond the pain. You see, what you want is on the other side of the pain. When you're in pain, you're back on your body. You haven't forgotten your body. The ideal of sitting practice is to transcend bodily consciousness. That's the whole goal. Are you with me? Now, you don't do that willy-nilly, and you don't do it right away. But in due course and over time, you are able to lose all awareness of the physical body. That's the whole point. Are you with me?
Yes.
Then does that come a little closer to answering your question? I wasn't able to quite follow. But I'm presuming that everybody here understands that, right? That you sit to lose all awareness of the body. You want to knock out one of those components by which you identify yourself as ego. You see, there's the bodily sense of ego, this clinging to the body. The purpose of meditation is to overcome that. You see, to lose awareness of that. To the degree you overcome awareness of the physical body itself, to that degree you are liberated. To that extent you are liberated from your ego. Are you with me? Then of course the next level is your emotions and so forth and so on. You see? To lose all awareness of that. You see? You're not aware of being angry. You're not aware of being bored. You see? Etc., etc. You lose awareness of that. Now you're even more liberated from your ego-bound condition. Are you with me? Then finally your thinking, your philosophizing, your thinking, solving. You see? To rise above that. So you want to successively rise above the physical, the emotional, and the mental bodies, right? Okay? Well, you can't do that if every time your body has some pain, you run back to it. You follow what I'm saying? That's the purpose of practice. So it starts with training the body. You see? And to train the body to be able to sit long enough to lose awareness of it. And that's usually somewhere in the vicinity of 2 to 3 hours. That's just the physiology of rising above bodily consciousness, you see. Once you have risen above it, then from that point on, it becomes a lot easier. You see, like everything else, the hardest part is to get it done the first time. That's why it is recommended that you practice for 2 to 3 hours, 2.5 to 3 hours. In the tradition, it says to hold the posture, you see, for 2 to 3 hours. And just the physiology of it, you will automatically, you see, lose awareness of body. Does that help you a little bit? The body goes numb, you see. Just like if you sit in this chair and cross your leg long enough, neuropathy sets in and you don't even feel your legs. You can't feel your feet, your toes no more. So it's not like exactly like that, because it's not about simply a cutting off of the circulation. You follow me? But that's the closest that I can give you of an example of what that feels like. Does that help a little bit more, beloved? See, so those are things to help understand the technique, the technology of meditation. What I was addressing earlier was to understand the whole philosophy and the psychology, the metaphysics of meditation. You see, that serves as the context for your practice. It brings to your practice the kind of stamina. Are you with me? Like when you know you're in trouble, let's say if a pit bull is chasing you, right? And you're running, right? And you know you got to keep running, because if you stop, what's going to happen? The pit bull going to get you, right? So it's like that. When you sit, yes, the pain is there. Yes, but you're going to keep sitting, because you know if you stop, you're going to remain trapped in bodily consciousness forever. Are you with me? And to be trapped at the level of bodily consciousness is to suffer. You see? A great deal of our suffer is based on our what the mystics call abhinavesta, this clinging to bodily existence. You're clinging to bodily existence as if bodily existence is going to last forever. Are you with me? Your bodily your experience of having a physical body is not going to last forever. You know that, right? So sooner or later, you're going to have to go through the pain of losing of what consciousness of the physical body. It's inevitable. You follow what I'm saying? So the mystics say, come on and learn how to do this now and get that over with, you see. And you'll have that much more freedom. Does that make sense to you, beloved? But all of that stamina, you see, and perseverance and dogged determination, right? Kukuru, this indomitable will to get it done. You see, all of that is the product of understanding. You see, your real situation. You see, there's some things that you have been challenged to do in your life that you brought to that challenge a kind of determination, because you understood, I have got to get this done. Are you with me? Do you see the difference between the outcome when you bring to it this kind of sense that I have got to get this done? You follow what I'm saying? There's serious consequences in my failure to get this done. You see the difference in the energy that you bring to a task that you know you got to get done? That it's not merely optional or experimental and I'm working on it. You know what I mean? The I'm working on it attitude is not reflective of that kind of determination. Are you with me? Are you following my argument?
You do.
But you will not have that kind of disposition unless you have the recognition of your situation. You see? You're in trouble. Are you with me? Now, when you recognize that you're in trouble, that gives you a whole different level of energy that you otherwise will not have access to. Is that about right? Correct? Yeah. If a pit bull is after you, you find an energy that you didn't even know you could run that fast. It was interesting, we was in vacation in Costa Rica, And Joyce has a phobia of all things that fly or crawl. You probably all can identify, some of the women can identify with that. And so we're walking one night back to the hotel, and we passed by, and in Costa Rica, you know, they have wildlife, you see, unlike Hawaii. And so there's an anteater walking across the lawn, right? Now, if you know Joyce has never walked fast in her life. You know, she sashayed. You know how you women sashay, right? Which I pointed out, I said, there's an anteater. Suddenly, I discovered Joyce could run and walk very fast. You see, she found that energy. Right? Because she recognized, oh, there's an anteater, and if I don't get away from him, I'm in what? Trouble. It's like that. Trouble gives you energy. But when you don't feel you are in trouble, then you're lackadaisical, oh, maybe, oh, I don't feel like it, oh, I'll get it done over time. You see what I'm saying? You procrastinate. You see? You put it off. And you're only putting it off because you do not recognize that you are in trouble as an ego-bound individual, you see? So there must first, in every one case, be a kind of a awakening from the illusion of ordinary and conventional life and living. There must, something in you must wake up, you see, and see your actual condition as it is. That's Vavika. Once Vavika occurs, then Viraj. You see my point? This clinging analogy that you were talking about, that's an absence of Vavika, because where there's Vavika, there's no more clinging. You see? Are you with me? If you're still clinging, but professing to have understood, then you may know for sure you have not understood. Where there's Vavika, there will be Virajya. There are concomitant phenomena like smoke and fire. Are you with me? It's really that simple. But you can't try to force this thing here. You really got to sit with this thing. It's been said over and over again, you have to really sit with this thing, contemplate, reflect. You see, mananda, you see? There's just no other way around that, you see? And as a result of that process, there's an awakening in you. And you awaken from this ordinary, conventional way of life, you see, to spiritual life. Spiritual life occurs after there's an awakening. You see, it's just a series of awakenings. But there must be this most fundamental awakening from the illusion of ordinary and conventional life and living, you see. Awakening from the illusion that you're going to find ultimate happiness with that by having that which is not ultimate. Are you with me? Can't do that. And you must awaken from the illusion and the presumption that that's possible. Are you following my argument? You have to wake up. You see, there must be this fundamental awakening before the process can begin in earnest in anyone's case. Yes, beloved.
Now, with the you're doing similar. Are you listening for the sound, or are you actually, visualizing?
Well, the process begins with first collecting attention, withdrawing attention, right? And this withdrawal of attention is accomplished by using the mantra, okay? As that attention accumulates, you see, then you are able to switch into budget, listening to the sound current and all of that, you see. Now, of course, we talked a great deal about those things. We'll talk more about them. But I'm a little leery to just keep instructing you with technology when you don't have the psychology to implement the technology. It becomes a pointless experience. Are you with me? Right? I can give you technique, but if you don't have understanding, it's pointless. You follow what I'm saying? Or you won't even have the energy to implement it. You follow me? So I tell you, okay, do the mantra, listen to the mantra. You want to be able to listen flawlessly to the mantra for the whole of the 2 hours. That's not how that works. If you get 5 minutes in, you did good. You see? If you want more, sit longer. Go sit 3 or 4 or 5 hours. But you're not going to do that. Are you with me? You're looking for a trick. There are no tricks. Are you with me? You are still operating out of a kind of fantasy. You see? It's just that now you are operating out of the fantasy of self-realization, but it's still a fantasy. You follow what I'm saying for you? Because that's what the ego-bound condition is all about. It's about constantly seeking to fantasize our way out of our dilemma. Are you following my argument? I know my language is vague, but I can't find any better way of articulating this, right? Constantly seeking to fantasize your way out of dealing with the reality of your situation. You see? So you fantasize that if I get married, I'll have the kind of self-fulfillment that deep down inside I'm longing for, right? So you pursue marriage, right? And you get it. But marriage is a part of conditional reality by definition, and therefore cannot deliver that kind of ultimate self-fulfillment that you got married to have in the first place. Are you following my argument? But it was a fantasy, right? So after that, then you fantasize some kids up. Well, you see, it's another fantasy. You see, all fantasies have the same function. It is an attempt for you to find a way to avoid dealing with your problem, which is the inevitable mortality of an ego-bound existence. Is that making any sense? Am I making any sense to anybody, or are these just words? It's just, yes, beloved.
Should the simmer be done with rhythm, like a type of rhythm?
Yes, you can do a rhythm. Everyone will have to find a particular knack for themselves that enables them to keep their attention on it, you see? And so that helps. But I must tell you again and again, nothing helps like having the right context. When you're drowning, you see, and you're going down for the first time, down for the second time, you're exhausted, you can hardly thread, somebody throw you a rope, you grab. You follow what I'm saying? You're trying to avoid drowning. Are you with me? That gives you a kind of energy. Right? It gives you a kind of energy that you otherwise would not have access to, and that's what it takes, you see. In the tradition, we call it birah, mamukshala, right? If you remember the processes that are outlined in the various wisdom tradition, all of them have some kind of term equivalent to birah or tense longing, strong desire, so forth and so on. That must be there. You see, you can't succeed and you can't even implement the technology of meditation unless there is this mamukshava, this strong desire, you see, to resolve your problem. You see, you won't have the energy to implement it. You see, you won't be focused. You'll be easily distracted. Are you with me? The pit bull is chasing you. You do not stop and pause to wave to any of your friends. You see? There's no distraction. You're focused. You know what I mean? On the route of escape. Are you with me? That energy is what concentrates you. Purposed. Are you with me? How can you become concentrated when you have no purpose for sitting? There's no purpose involved for you. It's just a part of your ego-based fantasy. You see? From fantasizing about getting married and thus achieving ultimate self-fulfillment. You've gone to fantasizing about becoming self and God realized. You see, as a means of having egoic fulfillment, right? That don't work. You see, it don't give you the stamina. You see, you don't get mumuksha. You see. Something else to say about it? Yes, beloved.
So when you get off the mat, that same thing that you're saying has to continue.
It will definitely continue, you see? Because, you know, you don't stop running until you get in the house. You see? It continues, you see? The mat is just part of that process. Your mumuksava is not just something you have while you're sitting, and then when you get up, there's no more mumuksava. That's your situation. Are you with me? Are you see the difference? Right? There's recognition. You see? There's recognition. And where there's this intense longing based on the recognition, you see? Because when you get up off the cushion, just because you're sitting here, you don't stop dying, do you? No. You still dying. When you get off of here, aren't you still dying? You see? So it continues, you see? That's what straightens your life out. That's what makes it your life spiritual. You follow me? Everything you're doing is somehow at some level connected, you see, to this whole understanding of the trouble you're in. It's connected. Are we done? Okay. We have 12:15. Should we stop?
Because the tourists are here.
Okay. Then we end here. And next week, not next week, next month, hopefully we should have a better situation. Right? Now, if you're really desperate, we can go out on the veranda. We can keep going. Huh? I'll leave that up to you. Okay. Check them. That you're hanging on to. So I don't know where to begin, so I think I'll follow your questions, and I think that's always better. I don't want to sound professorial and turn this into a philosophy class. Go, beloved.
You were giving us feedback in one of our cooler meetings, and you mentioned, you gave us an esoteric meaning of the chakras. You were saying that each chakra is a level of consciousness or a state of being, and if you could determine where you were based on which chakra you were in and what it meant. So now, how does that tie in with the purpose? And now, where
again,
do you need to be?
Again, you know, once you have the right disposition, you see, then you're able to implement that process. There are two fundamental processes that has been discussed in the great spiritual traditions of the world, the spiritual processes. One is the ascent. They call it the path of ascent through the chakras, you know, and so forth and so on, right? The other one is interiorization, the withdrawal in, you see. And those are basically the two major processes, you see. You can climb, you see, or you can pull back. In either case, you will have the experience of that which you are other than who you think you are, beyond the ego. Are you following me? The experience of self that you have as you move through the path of ascent is light. You see my point? The experience that you have through the process of interiorization is sound and light. So both of those are, again, sort of, how do I put it, forms of your true nature. And all of that is good to know. You see what I mean? But again, none of the disciplines that are associated with assent or the interiorization of attention will be implemented by you if you don't have the right stuff. You see? See, it's just not getting around it. You see, this dual sensitivity to your real condition and the sensitivity to your real pursuit of ultimate happiness, these two dual sensitivity must be there in the beginning of any sadhana. It is this dual sensitivity that not only makes sadhana possible, but even make it reasonable in the first place. So there's no way around that, you see. Usually what we try to do is go straight to techniques. You follow me? Even if you're given a technique, you don't have the mumukshava. So you wind up not doing anything. You follow me? There's no way around that recognition. You see, no way around vadika, no way around the recognition. Mumukshava, bera, intense longing, that must be there. That's the fuel. That's what gives you the energy and the fuel to practice. You see? And that comes basically at the very beginning. It's at the origin of sadhana. It's not something that comes down the road. It must be there at the very beginning. Right? And so we spent a lot of time outlining the technology, the esoteric, and so forth and so on, right? But if that's all we do, then you'll just become scholars. You follow me? And becoming a scholar don't solve the problem. So I thought it would be good from time to time. Every now and then I kind of pulled you back to the basic. You know what I mean? And this is just another occasion for that. You see, just trying to pull you back so that you don't get lost up in this search for technology, tricks, I call it, looking for tricks. You see, you're trying to avoid, you know what I mean? Really come into a different kind of disposition relative to how you do in your life, you see. So that's pretty much that, you know. The other thing, you can read those in books, you see my point? But you can't get mumukshava from the book. You can get information about chakras, about everything that you tend to ask questions about. There's a book somewhere written, a scripture somewhere, but you don't get mumukshava. You don't, bara, you don't get from a book. You see? Books can't give you that. Books give you information, right? But information is not equal to transformation. You see? That's energy, right? That's your work. You see? You got to bring that to the scripture. See, if you had that and you bring it to the scripture, you see, the scripture is made kinetic. You see? It's enlivened. You see? One word of Dhamma is sufficient. You don't have to read a ton of books, you see? But if there's no mumukshava, you see, if there's no energy, you see, if you're not got some way of recovering your energy out of your ego activity, you see, then what are you going to do, right? You know all this stuff, but all your energy is consumed in your ego activity, isn't it? Your egoity, right? You don't have no energy. You don't have time to meditate. You know all of the technical parts of the meditation, but you don't have no time. You see my point?
Yeah.
You're busy. You're consumed. Right? So what good is knowing all of that? You're so consumed. Yes.
I think that's where the deeper part of my question was, because what I was in my mind, what I thought is that when you mentioned that it would depend on where you are. For example, if I'm happy and if this is enough for me, see what I'm saying? If this is enough, then I'm not going to do anymore.
Right.
So that was the connection that I was asking about. Is where, say for instance, bodily comforts, food, sex, and blah, blah, blah. If that's my whole aim in life, or if that's what I think my purpose in life is,
Right.
well then, what's gonna take me out of it? See, I ain't gonna have no.
No, you're right. As long as you haven't awakened from the ordinary, conventional way of doing life,
Yes.
then there's nothing that can really happen for
That
you.
was-
Because
yeah,
you're unconscious.
Right.
You have not awakened. You are still doing the survival thing.
So
You're-
now, at some point, then there's something occurs
Yes.
to move me from,
Yes.
that place where I
Yeah,
am. And I
that's the
think that-
gift. You see, in everyone's life, if you're fortunate, there will be that rare moment of a kind of moment of clarity. We call it an instant of clarity. You see, it just comes suddenly. You see, some people confess it come in the case with Lao Tzu. He said he was sitting taking a crap. You know what I mean? And watching a leaf fall. And by the time it hit the ground, he had a moment of clarity. You see, Buddha had a moment of clarity when he went outside the palace. You know what I mean? If you read the biographies of these realizers closely, you will find in each case there was a instant of clarity. That's the gift. That's given by whatever you want to call it, God or whatever. You see, it doesn't matter. It's a gift. You see, because reality has to wake you up. You can't do it. You see my point? So it is a gift given to you. See, and then that is what transforms. You know, you get a satori in Zen. We call it a satori, a Zen. You know, a kintsu, an instance. You know what I mean? And it sounds always strange because it seems to have been such a insignificant event, yet it produced, you know what I mean, a complete gestalt shift and change. Some people get a near-death experience. Some people go through a crisis. Some people, for them, it's sickness or the loss of a loved one or something. But there is that moment, you see, when you get a glimpse. And then it changes from there. But that's a gift, you see. The most common form of that moment comes usually in company of the realizers. That's why traditionally they say keep the company of the realizers. Satsang, you see? And that it becomes their gift to us. You know, you read books where they talk about the gift of the guru. You know what I mean? It's those instances where there's that moment of clarity. You see. And what is it that you see? You see the condition. For a moment, you are distracted by the divine, so to speak. And in that divine distraction, you get a glimpse. And you see, oh my God. You see. And that changes everything. It releases the energy for the practice. But otherwise, you won't have no energy. You see. Something else about it, beloved? Yes.
Okay, so you say the gift or that moment of clarity is what really released the energy. So until then, we just have to keep working on kind of like cultivating that awareness.
I suppose that you could say, beloved, that when you have been doing something in that direction, at some point it just
Right.
you follow what I'm saying? Like that old saying that when the chela is ready,
Right.
the guru appears. So when the effort has been sufficient, the gift
Right.
appears.
Right.
It just comes
Right.
because you put in the effort. That's why every effort counts. You see, every effort counts. There is no wasted effort here. You see my point? And once it reaches a certain level, it's there. Because then you can appreciate it.
Right. Then
You
you're
see?
ready.
Right. Then it can get through. It's a
That was
craft.
like the story with the jeweler.
Yes, with like a story
Right.
with the jewel.
He couldn't just tell him that.
Couldn't just tell them
Right.
that. Couldn't just tell them that. And so we find that in our own case. I mean, we look back over the years, because we've been around for a minute here, right? And so you look back at an old video somewhere and you heard something said that it didn't even click then. 10 years later, You know what I mean? It's a moment, you see. So it's cumulative, so to speak. Cumulative, builds to it. But at a certain point, it must come, you see. And you must really go from there. Okay. Ask me more questions so I can not lecture.
So is it cumulative from lifetime to lifetime?
In some sense, yes. You see my point? In some sense, yes. Because there's evolution. You know, there's growth. Always moving. So in some sense, you're right.
But it's also
This may have been,
cumulative in this one.
you might have been contemporary to Buddha, to Jesus or somebody. You follow what I'm saying? And it just didn't click. You know what I mean? So 10 lifetimes later, you see? So forth and so on. So that's definitely possible. Definitely possible.
But it's also cumulative now.
It also can be cumulative within a single lifetime, true. You see? All of that is possible. You see? But you get it. You'll get it. I mean, at some point, I mean, that's what brought you all to the path. Some click. You know what I mean? So it's not like I'm speaking about something that hasn't happened. It may not have happened at the most profound level, but it has already happened. That's what brings us together. It clicked. You see my point? You heard something, you read something, just click, resonated, click. And it caused you to see things a little differently, you see. And that's just how it goes, you see. But what I was addressing with you today was fundamentally an argument for the cultivation of Avik. The importance of it. And hopefully making it clear to you that you can have all the techniques in the world, but you have no understanding, then you're not going to use those techniques. I mean, it's just going to sit on the shelf, so to speak. Follow me? It's not going to be applied because you really don't realize your condition. I don't even know how to talk about this stuff, so y'all have to help me. You see my point? 'Cause my tendency is to go to the clouds with it, and I know that's not going to be useful.
I'm still confused.
That's okay, good. You're in the right place.
I'm still confused about the term understanding. So is there a mental understanding and an innate understanding? Are those two things separate?
By understanding, I guess the word I want to use is recognition. You see, recognition is a kind of knowing. It's a kind of understanding, but it is not logical. You follow me? It's not just rational. You see, it's not syllogistic. It's based on a kind of direct perception. You see, you can recognize that the concrete is hard. You know, I recognize that. I understand this is hard. But that understanding is not based on deductive or inductive reasoning.
It's not mental.
It's not just mental. You know, it includes a mental component, but it's visceral. You follow what I'm saying? Or it's integral is a better word for it. That's what Viveka means. Viveka means the ability to see things as they really are. And the emphasis is on seeing things as they really are. You see, the ordinary and conventional way of life is based on the inability to see things the way they are. When you don't have that kind of realization, then the outcome is an ordinary and conventional life, you see. You tend to confuse the appearance with the substratum. You follow me? You confuse a rope for being a snake, you see, and you respond accordingly, you see. without Vavika, you keep thinking that you keep calling what is pain pleasure. You see, you continually feel that what is unreal is real. That's the absence of Vavika. You see, it makes you feel that what is totally unimportant is very important. You see, it calls you to confuse bullshit with what is and what isn't important and so forth and so on, you see. And there has to be a kind of Vavika to see through that and awaken you from the ordinary illusion of conventional and egoic life and living, you see. Otherwise, you spend all your lifetime just in Maya, appearances. You see. You keep pursuing that which you think will give you eternal happiness, but itself is impermanent. How can that work, you see? But you keep making that same error over and over because you don't see how that which is impermanent cannot produce permanent happiness. You don't see that. You follow me? Go.
Does that struggle ever end as long as you're alive?
No, it only ends when you wake up. That's the whole point. You see, if you don't wake up, you get another go around. That's samsara. You get to do that again and again and then again and again and then again until you see that. You see, it don't disappear over time naturally. That you must wake up. You see, it's the saints and mystic therefore always liken the relationship of the awakened condition or enlightenment to the relationship that awakened state consciousness have to dream state. Are you with me? They use that metaphor all the time, if you notice, right? And so while you're dreaming, you know, it seems so real, right? And there's no way to dispute it, right? The only way you can come out of that is you have to wake up. You see, then you see, right? And that there comes also the detachment that comes with awakening. So like if we're in a dream and I'm in a dream and I got this problem or this thing or this concern, when I wake up, I ain't got no more dream problems. You follow what I'm saying? All the problems I was having in a dream are disappeared upon my awakening, isn't it? Over with, right? In the dream, I had a problem. Somebody was chasing me. Somebody was trying to break in the house. You know what I mean? You see, wake up. I have no more problems. Those problems was at the level of dream, you see. Well, in some sense, you see, at this waking level, you got all this stuff, the problem, right? And so what is happening at the waking state is your identification with being the body-mind. That is what is happening. That is what is generating it. Are you with me? And once you have overcome this misidentification of true self with not self, right, then there's no more problems here. Are you with me? Problems are gone.
So how do you exist with the recognition of being the true self in a world of...
The world keeps right on going.
Right, but
It's
how do
nothing-
you coexist with that?
The problem is not the world. You see, it's how you are responding to it.
I see.
You see the difference? The problem is not the world. It's how you are responding to it. You see, when you wake up, you know none of this is real. You see, the saints constantly emphasize that. It's just an appearance. It's not real. You follow me? It's still happening, but you know it's not real. There is no event that you are experiencing in your waking state that is the truth. None of this is the truth. You follow what I'm saying? So you're still looking for truth, but you're looking for it out here. You're looking to find something or someone out here that is the truth. There is no truth here. You follow me? The world is not the truth, and nothing in it is the truth. It's an appearance. The truth is the consciousness underlying it. The world is just an appearance. You follow me? It can be enjoyed as such. The only problem is when you start thinking it's the truth. When you start thinking this is the ultimate final reality. This is not so. This is conditional reality. Are you with me? But not having any great realization, you can't discern the distinction between conditional reality and real reality. you keep confusing conditional reality with real reality, and therein lies the problem. You see? Are you following me? You all were considering that in one of the coolers, right? One of the laws. Yeah. So all of this goes on, you see. Hmm? Now this is what Satchita was alluring to. Well, you know, if I stop this thinking thing here, what's going to happen? Nothing's going to happen, because your thinking ain't determining nothing out here in the first place. That's your illusion. You see my point? Your thinking ain't determining none of this. You follow what I'm saying? Your personal egoic self is not doing nothing out here.
Right. It's just a perception.
Yeah, it's not even you. Yes, beloved.
So basically, it's you just keep following the instructions, doing the meditation, doing the sadhana, you know, practicing the 8 limbs, doing all the stuff, and just keep on pushing and keep on pushing and keep on pushing until that pushing has resulted.
You got to stop right now, right here, and you're going to have to recognize your situation, because you're not going to have the energy to do all this pushing.
All right.
You follow what I'm saying?
That's gonna cause you to push.
That's what gives you the energy to
Right.
to
Okay.
do the practices.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
And see, that's the hardest thing for us mostly to really understand, that there is something that is required in a very fundamental way that makes sadhana possible. You follow me? And that's recognition of your situation.
And I
See,
gotta know.
You
when
got to
I'm in trouble.
recognize. You see?
I gotta know the pit bull is chasing.
Yes, you got to actually see this. So
Okay.
Viveka, to some degree, must be there.
Okay.
It has to be there. There must be Viveka. There's not going to be any Viraja. There's not going to be any of the higher practices, the Katsapatis and all of that. None of that is happening. There must be Viveka. You see, you must recognize, you see, your situation. You see, that's why the Buddha said that, you know, you must become aware of death, of the ego self. The ego self will perish. Right? I mean, you must become aware. I don't even know how to talk about this stuff. You know what I mean? Yes, beloved.
Is the recognition the same as the awakening?
Yes,
Or
in
is
some
there-
sense, yeah.
Or are there levels
Yes,
of
yes.
understanding, levels of recognition, levels of awakening? I mean, it's like when you're in a dream, you wake up.
Right.
So,
And
but
slowly,
it's
like
not-
when you come out of a dream, slowly you may be first notice that you're laying in the bed. You know what I mean? You still haven't seen the room or anything. You know, then slowly your awareness expands. Now you see the room, and you see my point, and so forth and so on. So in some sense, there is that kind of a progression, but there must be that initial, you see, thing. Yes, the initial recognition that sets that whole process into place, you see. And it's just no way around that. There can't be any real authentic sadhana without that recognition, because there's nothing to fuel it. You see? It becomes intellectual. You follow what I'm saying? You see? But it doesn't change your circumstances. It don't change your situation. So that is what must be there. Again, it's very difficult to, at least for me, I don't have those kinds of skill sets that enables me to wax eloquently about this matter. But I do know that.
Eloquence won't get it.
No, eloquence won't get it.
It ain't that.
But it's
I'm
very
sorry.
difficult. No. It's very difficult.
But I can, because one thing that happened to me, I was trying to give somebody directions, and I was throwing up all kinds of places. I said, so-and-so is across the street.
Yes.
This thing is down the street.
Yes.
You know, it's right from here.
Yes.
The person had no
No
clue.
idea.
I got what you were trying to do with us. from that. I really did. I mean, it was just clear. I said, you know, so it doesn't make any difference how you say it. I can stand on my head. That person ain't gonna get it because they just have no clue of what. They
Nothing
don't
to
even
grasp.
know the area of the city I'm talking about.
Yeah, they can't
See
even
what I'm saying?
recognize the signpost.
That's what I saw was happening with me when you talked to you talking from a place I ain't never been. So there, and I don't remember that I've
Yes,
been
yes,
there.
yes, I understand.
So therefore, I'm having all this, you know what I'm saying, well, Gurzo, what you mean by this? And I mean, you know, what is that over there? And you know, how do I do this? You see
Yes,
what I'm
yes,
saying?
yes.
But I ain't got a clue. So in
That's good.
that
That's-
kind, but I mean that's
like
the
that,
kind of
yeah.
difficulty
Yes.
that I saw that I'm having with, you know,
I understand.
you push,
I just
like I
have to
said,
grab you.
eloquence
I
won't
have to
get
just
it.
drive you there. Right. I drive you.
Can I get in the car with
Miss
you?
Daisy. Right. Yes.
Recognition that you're in trouble, a lot of that comes from the contemplation part. You have to sit with the contemplation, and in that contemplation, like you mentioned, you say you got to give the same importance to contemplation as you do to your form of practice,
Yes, they go together.
and allow yourself a chance to start seeing that you're in trouble.
Yes, absolutely correct. You see, that you can't. This is not segmented. You know what I mean? It's all inclusive, and there must be this contemplation. You see, the mystics talk about it in terms of hearing. You know, so you know, you must hear. You must first hear, because the satsangs are when the gurus come and they point out things to us. They got to point to it. Look at this. You know what I mean? Look. You see, look at this, look at that. You know, you don't get stuck on the finger, but what the finger is pointing to. Look at this, look at this, look at this, look at this. You got to hear all of that. Then you got to actually do the looking, the manana. You follow what I'm saying? You see? And then comes the nididhyasana. You follow me? The actual implementation of the understanding. But you can't get around those parts. You got to hear and
But
then listen. You follow me? To the point of understanding. You follow me? And you got to do the work. You see? That can't be done for you. You have to do that.
But you're not even going to start to do the work without this knowing you're in trouble.
To some
I mean,
degree, that's maybe true, but if you got to follow the instructions.
Okay.
Are you with me? There has to be I'm sure that there must be the recognition that you don't know. If it's the case as you mentioned before, when you really recognize you don't know, then you listen.
Okay, now.
For
So
the-
that listening has to come.
The recognition that you don't know have to come, because you're not going to get listen unless you recognize you don't know.
Absolutely.
So that's the right order, you see. But even the recognition that you don't know is a kind of avika, isn't it? You see. So we can get hung up in semantics and splitting hairs about it. But essentially, there must therefore be this kind of recognition of your real situation, and that's not hard. It's hard to do as possible because you see, you've been born, and just by virtue of having been born and then become associated and identified with this physical body has resulted in you your being in a very troubling condition and situation, right? Because it's already done happened to you. You have already been born, and you have become associated to the point of identification with this body mind, right? That's a condition. That's a situation. And you are already aware of the fact that because of this association and identification with this physical body, you know this physical body is mortal. You know that. You don't have to read that in no book nowhere. You know this is mortal. You know that it is subject to all kinds of changes over the course of your lifetime, you see. You know that it's going to get sick. You know that it can be hurt. You follow me? You know anything can happen to this thing. Is that about right? You see? You know that. You see? And you are limited by it. You follow me? You are threatened by everything. Everything threatens this. You follow what I'm saying? And you are clinging to this bodily existence. You don't want to not be a body. It's what's so difficult in rising above the awareness of the body, because you want to be this body. This is what they have called a benavesa, clinging to this body. You want to remain in the body because you identify with it. It feels like this is me. And why wouldn't I want to exist as I am forever? You follow me? That's the illusion created by identification. That's the ego. Are you with me? And so now there's a problem. How to live forever in this bodily condition in the midst of all this death. Now that's your problem. You see? While you're trying to externally exist as this body, you see, in the face of overwhelming evidence that you don't have a chance in hell in pulling that off. You see? So what do? That creates all kind of anxiety. So that you distract yourself from this reality with food, with sex, with relationships, with this, with that. These are forms of distractions that distracts you from the anxiety that is associated when there is the realization and the sensitivity to your real condition. Are you with me? Are you following me? Right? But alas, none of that works. You see? Because that distraction ends, and then again the anxiety hits you. Then I got to do something else, and again that doesn't last. You see? And that distracts you. Are you with me? That's the first level of the problem. So the problem is twofold. You see, the first part of our problem is the mortality of that which we have become identified with. You see? Now, how can you ever be happy as long as you identify with that which is constantly changing and is subject to disappear anymore? You see, you're clinging to the body, but you can't be happy doing that. How can you be happy?
Right.
Knowing that this ain't gonna last. See, it messes with your happiness. Are you with me? You see, that's why you're not feeling totally fulfilled, because there's nothing you can eat, nothing you can drink, nobody you can marry, no trips you can take, no books you can read, no thinking you can do that is going to stop that process. Right? So the very fact of the mortality of the physical body that you have become identified with guarantees a limitation on how happy you will be. Because how happy can you be? Are you with me? But even in that aspect of your problem, you again distract yourself from it. Are you with me? Again, you desensitize yourself to the problem of not ever being happy. You follow what I'm saying? That's too much for you. I ain't gonna never be happy. I mean, you can't handle that reality.
You don't want to think about
You
that.
don't even want to think about that. You know what I mean? That's woo.
Let me watch a movie.
Right. They call it depression. You know what I mean? They call it depression, but it's really an intuitive recognition of the truth of the matter. You're not ever going to be happy. There's no thing that you can acquire or do that is going to result in anything like this personal egoic happiness you see. Personal egoic happiness is not possible.
So should you just let that sink in?
Yes, that's the whole point. You got to become.
No, forget about it.
Yeah. You got to become sensitive to that again. You see? You got to become sensitive to that. And there must be that recognition that, that this little stuff we're selling for, that's not even what you want. What you want, you can't get because of your identification with the body mind. So this is why ego transcendence become necessary. Are you with me? The problem is the misidentification with the body mind. Right? When that is overcome, you see, then death and all of that is overcome. You see? However, you know, one of the key things that I have to remind you of again is that you're searching for truth out here. Ain't nothing. Ain't nothing here true. You see? There's no truth here. There is no truth here. You see? No event that you are experiencing here in this waking condition is truth. It's an appearance. It's Maya. It's not the truth. You see? It's not the truth. And self-realization is not another kind of self-fulfillment of the ego. You see, you still pursuing self-God realization basically out of the same motivation that you have pursued other things for the sake of the fulfillment of your ego. Right? And that's not how it's gonna work. It can't work like that. You see? And that's why you struggle with your meditation, because it's not self-fulfilling from the point of view of the ego. Are you following? That's how you know it's sadhana. It's not self-fulfillment for the ego. The ego is not fulfilled by any kind of spiritual practice whatsoever. It's not. You follow me? And so it's really, really something, you see. So when you are able to factor back in these two fundamental insights, then sadhana becomes possible. Follow what I'm saying? Then sadhana. I mean, it's not so much that you're willing to work yourself to death anymore to acquire this or that thing, because you already know this is not what I want. I want true happiness. I'm not interested any longer in just settling. See, as long as you're still in that level of your development where you are going to settle for it, you know what I mean? As long as that is your disposition and mentality, then you're never going to have any true happiness, because you are settling for that which is less than true happiness. Are you with me?
Yep.
And you don't mind doing that because you figure, well, at least I'll get some pleasure here and there out of it. So I take that deal.
That's
So,
what everybody
yeah.
else is doing.
Yeah, that's the ordinary.
I got a lot of company.
That's right. That's the ordinary, conventional way of life and living. You see, you forsake the pursuit of true happiness, and instead you settle for that which is less than true happiness. A little pleasurization here, a little consolation there, a little self-indulgence here. You understand? Money, food, sex, bodily comfort, and you settle. You see? But you're not going to be happy. See, this is what you got to get. This is the breakthrough. You see? You can settle for all of that, true. But you're not going to ever really be happy. You're not going to give what the heart really wants. You're not going to give what you want. You don't even know what you want. You follow what I'm saying? The mystic come and tell us, this is what you want. You see, they give us a name for it, a word for it, a language for it. They make us a little bit more aware. What you want is true happiness. Now you say, I want love. No, you want true happiness. You want love because you feel by having it, it'll make you happy. Bottom line, you want ananda. You want satchitananda. That's what you want. Deep down in your soul, that's what the soul wants. You follow what I'm saying? It don't want no temporary pleasures. Are you with me? It don't want a little hit for an hour and then it disappears. You follow what I'm saying? It don't want that. It wants what it wants, you see. But the ego will always settle for less. Are you with me? The ego will always settle for less. Give me a little pleasure, give me a little this. You know what I mean? So what you have to consider is what will you do about it? Will you settle for less than that which is real happiness? Or not? That's your choice. But you have to decide that. So this is where it gets personal, you know. But it's almost like in other areas of ordinary life. I mean, true love, just to get into something a little bit more mundane, you know, like people looking for true love. Do you want true love, or you just want pretend show business? You know, or do you want true love? See, something in us wants true stuff. Something in us longs for the truth. You see? You want a true relationship. You know what I mean? You want a man that really loves you, or a woman that really loves you, or somebody that really. I mean, you understand what I'm saying? It's your deepest, most love, at your heart most depth. You want something true. You see? True happiness, not pretending that you're happy. You know what I mean? It was interesting. Whenever you go, I love going on these trips because I get a chance to. It's like studying a scripture. You know what I mean? It's beautiful. You see, it just reaffirms everything that Maharaji says. You know, I get to see it again and again. So that's what I enjoy. And so, you know, I love it, you know, when the plane go through turbulence, you know, because when you're on the plane, you know, everybody, they ha, 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 and you get some of that turbulence here, go dead silent.
That's right.
Right? Dead silence takes over the plane, you know what I mean? Because they're brought back to the reality of their situation. You can die, right? And that cuts all chit-chat and all that stuff in, you know what I mean? And it's just so funny, you know what I mean? You see? You see? And in that moment, they become afraid again. You see? That's just what happens, you see, when you become sensitive to your real situation, you become afraid.
Right.
You see? When that plane dips, you become afraid again because now you're back in touch with the reality of your situation. You're 40,000 feet above the ground. You see? And this damn thing can drop out of the sky. And that's the end of my life. You see? And you become afraid again. You follow what I'm saying? So that's why you find that the unawakened and ordinary and conventional way of life is a life that is purpose to relieve you of the fear. You want to be distracted from that fearful reality of your mortality, right? It's a profound matter, yes, beloved.
So how do you explain those that are not afraid to die? Those that
They're ignorant. You see, sometimes they could be so insensitive, so unaware, you follow what I'm saying? That they can't even be afraid of their mortality because they're just unconscious almost. Like this a recorder's not afraid of its destruction, but it's going to be destroyed, right? That's for sure, isn't it? Right? Any minute somebody can step on it, but it, if you want to use that analogy as an entity here, has no fear, right? It's unconscious. You follow what I'm saying? Unconscious. Totally deluded. You see? Totally deluded. You see? And that's what happened to the person that succeeded, you follow me, in deluding themselves. They relieve themselves of that anxiety, but at what price? They have totally deluded themselves. That means they are totally out of touch.
And plus, they can't die. They scared of death because they scared to lose their job and everything else that involves death. So they really ain't afraid. They're afraid of death. They just don't even know.
They can't even conceive of their physical, their death. You see, but they're afraid of all other forms of loss. Loss of job, loss of face, loss of this, loss of that. And where there's fear of loss, there's fear of death. Death is loss, except death is the ultimate loss of everything. You see? So if you can't handle the loss of one or two things, how you going to handle the loss of everything? It's just pure bullshit. You see, man? That's all. Delusion. Let that plane dip. I guarantee you, if you're not afraid now, you will be afraid.
Well, I was referring to
those not in this country, those that are like blowing themselves up.
Terrorists? No,
They're
they
afraid.
don't fear this death. They think they're going to paradise. Little do they know, you see. But that's crazy. That's insane, right? You have to be insane to do that, don't you think? So that's the definition of insanity. But you all get my point, right? You can feel that fear, right? That fear. That's what characterizes the egoic condition. The egoic condition is characterized by fear, great fear. You see, doubt, disease, discomfort, so forth and so on. So these are some of the things that I wanted to share with you all, just to remind you again, so that you can have the right context. So when we go sit, you're on a mission. You see, it's a mission. You're on a mission here. You follow what I'm saying? There's a point to this here. You follow me? This is not just mechanical and routine, a ritual or a ceremony. It's none of that stuff. It ain't religion. This is a mission you on. You see? It is a response to reality. Meditation is a response to reality, the reality of your situation. You follow me? It's a response to that, you see. It is based on the recognition you're never going to be happy. There is no true happiness waiting in life for you. You follow me? That's never going to happen, period, right? Meditation becomes your response to that revelation. Now you're going to do that which will produce true happiness, because that's what I want. Right? And such happiness do exist, but it's beyond the ego. What you're looking for is beyond the ego. Are you with me? It's beyond the ego. It's not within the fear of the ego. It's beyond the ego. But that's really what you truly want. You want true happiness, complete, permanent, eternal, absolute happiness, not having to do anything for the sake of being happy again in your life. That's what you want. True self-fulfillment. Complete. You follow what I'm saying? That's what you want. And you pursue knowledge only because you feel knowledge will produce that outcome. You pursue love because you think that will produce that outcome. All of these other things we're doing is all purpose in the hope that it will produce this thing, right? So it's a response. But if you don't accept it, these reality, what would there be to motivate you to practice? You see? Because you actually think you will find true happiness, right? You really are convicted that you're going to find something in this realm of conditional reality that equals true happiness and self-fulfillment. That's what you believe. You see? And you constantly are coming up with all kinds of fantasies that you feel, if implemented, will produce that outcome. Is that correct? All right. And you go from one fantasy, acting out one fantasy, to acting out the next fantasy, to acting out the next fantasy. But they're all fantasies. You're just seeking to fantasize your way out of having to deal with the reality of your situation. You're just fantasizing. That's all. And none of your fantasies upon implementation has produced the true happiness you're seeking. Is that about right?
Right.
Your fantasy that if I go and get a PhD, I'll be happy. You go get your PhD and you fulfill that fantasy, and then there's no true happiness. Is that about right?
Yeah.
Go make me some money, right? Become a businessman, influence, right? And you go do that. It's just a fantasy, right? You act out the fantasy, but you never get the true happiness that you presume will come from that. Is any of this making sense to you? I sound like a broken record, I know, but I feel that I need to every now and then remind
Yeah.
ourselves of this reality, right? Your 2.5 kids that's another fantasy you run. They don't produce the outcome. Now, how long will you go on living like this? Or will you devote your life to the pursuit of true happiness? Or do you want to continue to devote your life to that which is less than complete, less than fulfilling? What do you want to do, boo?
I want to enjoy everything.
Then you gotta do the sadhana. You gotta do that sadhana. You see? You will do that sadhana in that case. Follow me? We'll do it. And it won't feel like nobody imposing upon you, no imposition. It won't feel like no chore. It won't feel like none of that. It'll feel like freedom. You know what I'm saying? It'll feel like freedom. Blessing. You see? Great opportunity to escape. You see? It becomes salvation. Moska. You follow me? No drudgery in it. You see? Refuge. You see? You take refuge in it. You see? It's your chance to really have true happiness. And if you don't get true happiness, what do you got? I feel like I'm in a class. Come on, you have to talk to me. You know what I mean? You have to talk to me. You know. Yes, beloved.
Can you, this thing with consciousness and what you said something about
Louder.
the need to begin to identify with the higher level of consciousness that we are.
Begin to cultivate this thing, to be consciousness. To be consciousness. You see. To change your mental concept. That's what you were referring to, right? To go from the Ashuddha Vikapa to Shuddha Vikapa. To at least mentally begin to look upon yourself differently. That's a beginning stage of it. Yes, you see. That's useful. You see. If you can't start nowhere else, then you start there. You see. But you got to change how you seeing yourself. As long as you seeing yourself as being fundamentally this body-mind, you're in trouble. You're binding yourself. Are you with me? You're binding yourself to a circumstance that is guaranteed to produce misery for you, sir. You're binding yourself to a proposition about the nature of your true being that is going to move you further and further away from the experience of it. You follow me? So even if you could begin at this mental level, where you can change your concept of self, that's a beginning. You follow what I'm saying? That's a beginning. If you can do that within this context, are you with me? It's even better. I cannot emphasize enough the value of the context, because that's what gives you the energy, even to sustain that mental practice of changing your concept of yourself. You follow me? Because until you recognize your situation, why in the world should I change my concept of myself? You're not even going to be willing to do that. You follow what I'm saying? For what? Context is so important. This Viveka is so important. You know. All right, I've worn you rascals out. I was just hoping that one or two of you all out here see the light, see the point. Yeah.
So,
Yes, but
so when like the loneliness or the fear kicks in, you know, when you're not so distracted and you feel that loneliness come on you and that fear, you let that sink in and pay attention to
yes,
that.
you become sensitive to that. You become aware of that, because that's the truth of your condition. You see my point? You put your arm around it. You follow me? You see? Because that's the truth of your condition. You are alone. You follow what I'm saying? You don't have nobody. belief that you do have somebody is pure illusion. You follow what I'm saying? That's the reality, you see? Now, respond to that reality appropriately. Are you with me? Rather than inappropriately, you see? Use that moment of recognition of your true condition to become the basis for your sadhana, right? As opposed to running back out in the world to console yourself from that condition.
Right, turning on the radio.
Turn on the radio, the TV, or whatever it is. Turning on the person, making some money, whatever it may be. You see? And even when you come back out into the world, because that's always a question, then you do your duty out here, not your attachment. See, you all are got it twisted. What you call it duty is mostly attachment. It has nothing to do with duty. You see, duty is that which leads to the liberation from your ego, not the reinforcement of it. You see? So you get it twisted. You follow me? So this doesn't go anywhere. You see my point? But you use it differently. You use this experience differently. You use this experience for your liberation. You're using the experience for binding you to it more and more and more. You see? You're doing just the opposite with this experience. You follow me? You're trying to use it to somehow overcome the reality of the death, the eventual death of this body. You're trying to get your hands on something or someone out here that's going to interfere, slow this process. There's nothing going to change this process. Are you with me? Care how much money you make. You're still going to grow old. You're still going to get sick, and your ass going to die. There is no amount of money you can make that's going to stop that process. You follow me? I don't care how in love you are with your husband and your wife and your kids. None of that will stop the process. It's your problem for you, the presumed ego self, is that you're going to die. That's your problem. You don't have any, all other problems are rooted in that. That's your problem. As an ego-bound individual, is that you're going to die. That's your problem. Isn't it? You can't stop that. But you're trying, aren't you? So even then you come to the path to get enlightened, but it's in the purpose of solving your, stuff there. Buddhas die. I mean, you know what I mean? They lose the body too. Maharaj, you lose the body. Swamiji, everybody loses the body. Nobody survived the body. You follow what I'm saying?
The Buddha died of food poisoning, right?
Yeah. Allegedly some pork. It's that. But that's permitted in Buddhism, I guess, not in Islam. Right? But everybody died. Jesus got murdered. You might get murdered. You follow what I'm saying? Right? So they lose the body, but they don't have a benavesa. You got a benavesa. You clinging. You see my point? You're going to go kicking and screaming. You see my point? Because what you're up to as an ego-bound person is you trying to perpetuate the eternal existence as being in this body. That's what you up to. And you can't pull it off. You see? And not being able to pull it off, there's an undercurrent of anxiety running underneath you, and you got to distract yourself. So you got to smoke some ganja or something, right? You got to distract yourself from the reality of your situation. So you won't even make right use of this thing. You see my point? You're not even making right use of the world and the experiences in the world at all. You follow me? So you have a wife, but you don't know how to make use of a wife. You have a husband, but you don't know how to make use of your husband. Not really, not true. Right. You follow what I'm saying? You don't know how to use the person for the sake of liberating yourself at all. You use the person for the sake of indulging yourself. Right. Are you with me? And further distracting you from the reality. Is that about right? Is that about right?
Yeah.
Do the same with your children, same with your, you just don't know what you're doing.
Right.
You don't have enough realization to make right use of the world. So you have no right speech, no right action, no right mindfulness, no right livelihood. You don't have none of the right stuff Buddha is talking about. Right. None of that applies to you. You don't have right intention, nothing. You follow what I'm saying? Just the opposite. Wrong. You're trying to use everything as a means of perpetuating and internalizing your ego self.
Right. Feel good.
Yeah, always feel good, feel better. All right? and just feel better. It ain't even going for true happiness. Just settle for feeling better. And that's it. Terrible, isn't it? Well, see all of these things and then become serious about your practices. Right? So that's what all this spiel is about. It comes down to the meditation. Because we'll meet and we'll sit and we'll meditate. You know, we've been doing that. This is not anything new, right? But I want to remind you from time to time, come on, you know, you got to understand why we're doing this here. You just can't fall into this ritual, ceremony. Then you reduce your meditation to religion. You follow what I'm saying? That's an ugly thing, right? And I would be brokenhearted if that was the case, you see. You got to sit with some understanding here. You see my point? Sit with some understanding. Get something, you see. And stop looking for tricks. You follow me? There are no tricks here. Work. Work. All right, I think that's enough for the big O.
Well, just say the two again right together that
I
you want
try.
us to
Yeah. What I was saying is that there's a kind of dual awareness, a dual sensitivity that is required and is fundamental for sadhana, for spiritual practice. What makes it possible? What makes it even reasonable in the first place? And the first kind of sensitivity you have to recover, the first kind of recognition that you must have is the recognition of the reality of the situation you are in as an ego-bound individual. You follow me? See what the consequences of that kind of identification with the body, mind, result in. And the condition that identification with the body, mind result in is your mortality. That's mortality, right? You have reduced yourself to mortality, which means ending, change, death, right? And because of the terrible nature of being in that condition, you see, the fear that is inherent in knowing that you're not going to live forever, that you're going to die and it's going to hurt and so forth and so on. To give yourself relief from that fear, you engage in all kinds of activities, emotionally, mentally, physically, for the sake of consoling yourself, distracting yourself, you see, from that. Believing that by doing those things, you can somehow change that reality. And when in fact, nothing that you're doing works. Nothing that you do changes that reality of your imposed mortality. Are you with me? That's the first thing, you see? And then the second thing that you must also become sensitive to, which in some sense is a corollary to the first one, right? It's complementary, but it's contrary at the same time, is that in spite of this condition you are in, that in you that is not ego, urge to be happy, it's impulse to be happy, right? That authentic self, the real self, that which you are beyond the ego, what it desires is real, true happiness, Satchidananda, you see? But it cannot be fulfilled as long as this egoic condition remains. Are you with me? And therefore, there is no fulfillment here, right? Even though you're doing this and you're doing that, you don't never feel fulfillment at that depth. All of the fulfillment you feel is on the surface of your being. It's not deep in you. It's just the surface. Usually just limited to the body. So you eat some pizza, you feel okay at the body, but deep down inside, you don't even feel good eating no damn pizza. Because pizza don't give you that kind of depth of satisfaction. Are you with me? So most of the satisfaction you get is of the very grossest kind of nature. Every now and then you hear some poem and it might go a little deeper. You follow me? Or you have some kind of profound thought in physics somewhere and it go a little bit deeper. But ordinarily, day to day, conventional life, even the little fulfillment you get seldom is more than gross, just physical. Ice cream, good and then gone, right? But never goes deep. So the fulfillment is not deep, right? So that creates two problems. One, you're gonna die. Two, you ain't gonna never be happy. That's your problem. You see? And these two problems exist only because of this one thing, ego. The misidentification of consciousness with the body-mind. You see? And the only way out of that, say the mystics, is that you must go beyond the ego and recover the experience of your true self, which is only consciousness. Right? And they said, notice, you're not your emotions, you are that which is conscious of emotion. Notice, you are not the body, you are that which is conscious of the body. They said, start noticing this here. Start practicing noticing who and what you are. You follow me? But you won't do that if you really feel that I am this body. You follow what I'm saying? You won't do that if you already think that, well, the little gross happiness you're getting is enough. There'll be nothing to motivate you. You follow me? So there must be this mamukshava, this intense longing, you see, to make all of that technology that the mystics give us work. You see? So those are the two things, and you got to cultivate that. You follow me? Contemplate, cultivate, satsang, kula. You see my point? Y'all supposed to be helping one another. You don't know the advantage that you could be for one another. Not like in the old days, you know, when, I'm on 12 place, ain't nobody to talk to. I'm reading damn books and recording them in recorders and stuff. You know? You see, because there's nobody to talk to about this shit. You see my point? Look, y'all got each other. You know, you're not even making use of each other. You follow what I'm saying? You talk to each other about bullshit and stuff like that. You follow what I'm saying? You all are wasting each other. Just wasting one another. You see? But you got to cultivate in some way, shape, or fashion this sensitivity and maintain it. Abide in that recognition. Abide in this recognition. You see? And practice within this recognition is the most important thing. Practice it within it. You see, this is where the practice is supposed to be done within this recognition. You see, that practice now gets laser-like, zeroed in. You follow what I'm saying? You follow me? And you put in that work, because now you understand what you're doing. Now, you understand why you're doing it. You really understand it. It ain't a belief no more. It's not dogma. It's not doctrine. It's not because Bhagwan said. It ain't true because I said. Shit is just true. You know what I'm saying? So don't go on what I say. Go look and see for yourself. Get your own conviction. Because unless you get your own conviction, ain't nothing happening here. You follow what I'm saying? You'll be doing religion. You follow me? You got to go get this thing. And look at us. What a beautiful opportunity we got. I mean, think about this. How fortunate we are. Right? You got a chance to live a life that is more than just ordinary and conventional. What else could a human being want? You follow what I'm saying? I mean, really, what else can a human being want? But you must, as the Dharma was said in the movie, you must overcome your addiction to other people's opinions and all of this other stuff. You got to wake up from the illusion of ordinary life and conventional living. You got to wake up from all of that. You follow what I'm saying?
Approval junkies.
Yeah, approval junkies, addicts. You follow what I'm saying? Constantly seeking to be approved of by this person, that person. You see? You see? Got to get past all of that. Got to get past the romanticism and the fantasy of spiritual life. You know, don't make a fantasy out of this stuff. This is no fantasy. Follow me? If I get initiated, then I'll be egoically satisfied. That ain't gonna happen. But that's why you got initiated. Okay, so let's correct that now. You know. Nothing that you're experiencing here is the truth. Nothing that you're experiencing in the dream is the truth. You see my point? The truth is beyond that. You see? No truth out there. No event, no person, no thing is the truth. It's just an appearance, guys. Just an appearance. See? Just ropes looking like snakes. That's all. All right. It's her snap time now, so I got she did good now. See, because you don't normally Marty, she been knocked over.
Knocked out.
She be knocked out. So that's enough. Let's quit while we're here. Let's shake her. I hope I didn't keep y'all too long today.
You did good. Georgia said you could be on the veranda if you wanted to. She don't care.
Beautiful. Who did this thing?
Everywhere. This is,
That's Fabrika's.
here she said, can you take it? And then that's a damage
Almost like
repair.
this.
Oh, okay.
Honey's grandson is here.
That's boy, I gotta save this here.
Give your invites to
Oh, that you'll take care of You got it? All right. Let's shake them.
Come on, we have some personal questions.
Sat round. Ronnie. We staying here?